Now for our story. This morning at the Lane farm, a murmur of voices could be heard coming from Peggy's room upstairs. Lefty Larkin, who'd come into the kitchen for a glass of water, listened thoughtfully. He wasn't eavesdropping because he couldn't hear the actual words. He was simply trying to decide the mood of the conversation which was going on between Aunt Mary and Peggy Douglas, her niece. The young girl Lefty knew to be his daughter. He'd been troubled the last few days, ever since the night Peggy had come home from town to announce that she and Nicholas Dorn, the young writer, planned to be married the following week. Although Lefty liked Nicholas very much, there was something about Peggy's attitude. She didn't seem to be excited, as Lefty had expected, with regard to the plans for the wedding. She seemed restless and disturbed. Well, after listening a moment, Lefty concluded that Aunt Mary and Peggy were simply having one of the little talks they like to have so very often. And he went outside to his chores. Upstairs in her room, Peggy was standing on a stool in front of her dressing table mirror. She was trying on a new dress. Aunt Mary, who had been pinning up the hem, stopped to survey the results.
Oh, dear. Does that seem to be the right length? Let's see. Uh-huh. That's just right. I like it to fall about an inch below my knees. Oh, good enough. Oh, that's a nice length. Mm-hmm. The dress is very becoming to you. Has Nicholas seen it? Not yet. Well, I thought maybe he'd help you to pick it out. Oh, no. I just happened to see it in the window. I need a new dress, so I went in and bought it. I think that little touch of goldie on the neck sets off the white nicely, don't you? Uh-huh, yes, indeed. It'll look lovely with that scarlet coat of yours, too. Yes, I thought so. Oh, you didn't forget to make that deposit at the bank, did you? No, I did that first thing. The bank was in my bag. Did you see Bill when you went in? No, Aunt Mary. Why do you ask? Well, now that he's working there, I thought you might have run into him. No, I haven't seen Bill for quite a while. I'm just as glad, too. Glad, Peggy? Oh, yes. It's just, sort of awkward whenever we do see each other. Yes, I suppose it is. Could be only natural after all that we used to mean to each other. You've never given him a chance to explain, have you? I don't see why it should be necessary. He knows exactly where I stand. Perhaps. But do you know where he stands? If you've never given him a chance to talk to you about it? Since Kit came back? I know, Aunt Mary. I guess I have been unreasonable about it. I guess the trouble is that I was so busy trying to protect myself that I wasn't thinking very much about anyone else's feelings. Oh, dear. I'm afraid that is more or less true. The reason I mention it is that I think it's so important to be clear about the whole situation. For everyone to be completely honest with each other before you and Nicholas take such an important step. Well, I admit it bothered me too, Aunt Mary. It's all right to be stubborn when you think you're right. But if you have any doubts at all, then you shouldn't be. Maybe after a while the bitterness will go away. But it will be too late then to straighten things out. I know, Aunt Mary. You're so right. It takes a lot of courage to make an admission like that. But the fact that you can is one of the reasons I'm so proud of you, my dear. Well, I suppose I do come to my senses eventually. But I certainly can be an awful dope sometimes. Oh, everybody makes mistakes. The main thing is to be willing to admit your mistakes. Try to make them right. And, of course, you have to be willing to give the other fellow a chance to make up for his mistakes, too. At least to try to understand his side. You think I should have a talk with Bill, don't you, Aunt Mary? Well, Peggy, dear, he has a right to know that you understand why he behaved as he did while Kit was away. And the boys don't see what Bill is. And there's a lot more grief in store for him, I'm afraid. The thought that someone very dear to him feels bitterly toward him, perhaps dislikes him. Oh, but I don't dislike Bill, Aunt Mary. Well, I doubt that Bill knows that. And I'm pretty sure that with everything else that's happening to him, makes a pretty heavy load to carry. It's something I feel should be straightened out before you go ahead with your plans to marry Nicholas. But we won't discuss that part of it again now, if your mind's made up. But at least I'd like you to feel easy in your mind, knowing that You've left no loose ends. Nothing up in the air. Oh, if you want to slip your dress off, I'll hem it up for you right now.
Oh, that'd be wonderful, Aunt Mary. I'm a lucky girl to have an aunt like you. You're always so right.
Well, I think I'm pretty lucky to have such a nice niece.
Oh, I don't know about that part. Sometimes I think I must be an awful headache to you.
No, Peggy, dear. You mustn't ever think that. The only time I'm unhappy about you, and it isn't very often, is when I'm afraid you're not being true to yourself.
And you can always tell, can't you?
I think I know you pretty well. The last few months have been very difficult for you.
Yes, they were. And then, since Kit came back, everything was even worse.
It's only natural you'd be upset.
I didn't want to be reminded about it all over again. Bill and Kit, and now the baby. All the talk about a divorce.
It's a tragic thing, no matter how you look at it. Bill feels a great responsibility toward the child. He's so anxious to do the right thing. And a divorce is one of the most sorrowful things in the world to me. I always hate to think that a relationship, which was meant to be such a beautiful one, can end that way.
I know. But if people don't get along...
Well, of course. That depends, too.
Depends on what, Aunt Mary?
It isn't just a question of getting along, as you put it. A lot of times, if two people would stop to think things over, work things out together, with each person willing to give as well as take, being willing to adjust himself one way or the other, there wouldn't be a need for a divorce.
No, I suppose not. But most people aren't willing to do that, are they?
A lot of people aren't, at any rate. Of course, the main thing is for people to be very careful before they take such an important step. To be sure the person they marry is the right one for them.
You're right. That is the main thing. Look at Bill.
Yes. Bill was somewhat at fault, and he knows it. But on the other hand, he can't be blamed entirely. He simply wasn't experienced enough to know the best way to deal with a Calvert. He's certainly paying for it now. You see that, don't you?
Yes. And I do feel sorry for him. I didn't want to admit it before, but I guess you knew I was talking through my hat, as Lefty said.
Of course I did, dear.
You're a very patient woman, Aunt Mary.
Perhaps. And I'm pretty sure what's going to happen. You don't mind waiting for something you want if you know in your heart it's bound to happen sooner or later.
You know, Aunt Mary, I feel so cheerful now, talking it all over with you honestly. I feel better than I have in ages.
Oh, I'm so glad, Peggy. That makes me very happy.
You see, something's been bothering me all along, but I just went on trying to close my eyes to it. I think I know what the answer is. Now.
I hope so, my dear.
But Mary,
Yes, dear?
I wondered if I could take the car for a while.
No, of course, dear. But I thought your date with Nicholas was for dinner.
It is, but, well, I have a few things to do first.
Well, why don't you run along then? If Lefty wants to go somewhere, you can take the truck anyway.
Okay. Anything I can bring you from town?
No. Can't think of anything.
Aunt Mary, I don't know what I'd do without you.
Well, I must get downstairs to my ironing. I've got a whole basket of clothes.
See you later.
Aunt Mary went down to her ironing with a happy little smile on her lips. She was quite certain what Peggy intended to do in Wakefield, and she felt it was a good thing. Whatever happened, whether Peggy went through with her intention to marry Nicholas Bourne or not, it was important that the girl should see Bill, clarify her attitude toward him once and for all. In the long run, this would be better for Peggy, as well as for Nicholas, especially since Aunt Mary knew something that Peggy hadn't yet realized, that Nicholas Bourne had fallen deeply in love with her. Now for our story. Peggy Douglas, Aunt Mary's niece, had just put in a phone call to Wakefield's bank. the bank where Bill Meade has accepted a job from David Bowman.
Hello, I'd like to speak to Bill Meade. Oh, it is? Well, hello, Bill. This is Peggy. You did? I guess my voice hasn't changed very much. I'm fine, thank you. Bill, the reason I called, I'd like to see you well, today, if possible. I'm in town at the drugstore. Oh, no, I don't think we'd better. Oh. Well, all right, if you like. You gotta be fine. I'll be there. Yes, Bill, I remember the place. Very well. Bye, Bill. The Downtown Hotel, please. 750. I hope Nick's there. I have to postpone our appointment. Hello, Nicholas Dorn, please. Maybe I could have asked Bill to meet me earlier, but the bank doesn't close until... hello, Nick. This is Peggy. Well, something nice, I hope. Well, Nick, that's why I called. I wanted to tell you I'll be a little late. Would 6 o'clock be all right? Oh, just something. I'll tell you when I see you. All right. Thanks, Nick.
2 telephone calls made by Aunt Millie Lane's niece, Peggy. One to Nicholas Dorn, the man she's engaged to marry. And one to Bill Meade, the man she once loved, but who married Kip Calvert. Yes, she thought to herself, she was going to marry Nicholas, forget all about the past. As she hung up the receiver, Peggy had wondered vaguely at the urgency in Nick's voice. He seemed particularly anxious to see her. Peggy was only too right. Nicholas was anxious to see her. With thoughts far from the usual ones for a bridegroom-to-be, he'd been steeling himself for this appointment with Peggy. He had something very important to tell her. Now that she'd postponed her appointment for an hour, he was afraid of those extra 60 minutes, afraid he might lose his resolution. Needing something to occupy his time, he hurried down to the little cocktail lounge in the hotel. The girl he'd met there the last time he was in was sitting at the bar again. And still, Nicholas had no idea that she was Kip Meade.
So, the mysterious stranger returned.
Oh, hello. One meets the nicest people in bars these days, did you notice?
How does one? Are things looking up for you since our last talk?
Anything but.
Oh, really? That's too bad. I thought maybe all your problems had melted away.
Don't be deceived by this appearance of careless abandon. Conceals a heart weary and worn.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, things have been going steadily downhill. How about you?
Likewise.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, for my part, I've decided what I'm going to do.
That's half the battle, if you can stick to it. What did you decide, or am I being too inquisitive?
No, not at all. As it happens, you're the one who's responsible for my decision.
I am?
Mm-hmm. Remember, you told me not to knock my head against the stone wall, marry, hoping I could win the gal's heart later with my beauty and charms?
Yes, I remember. And I'll stand by it.
Oh, decided you're right. Going to cancel the whole deal. Tell her no go. Just building up to it now. A little spiritual courage, you know?
I see. Well, it's doubtless pretty hard on you, but I still think you'll come out better this way.
I suppose so. It's rough going, really. I kept hoping, thinking it might pan out by some kind of magic.
Yes, I know that side of it, too. But believe me, magic is not the answer.
You're so right. Magic hasn't been very effective since the mystics like Merlin went out of business.
Nothing's effective, my friend. You have to be realistic. You understand, of course, that I don't necessarily follow my own advice.
Does anybody ever? You know, I still can't believe it. I thought I was such a smart guy. Had all the answers. And then, boom.
Well, maybe we'll both be smarter next time. I'm pretty sure I will.
I wouldn't want to make any rash promises at this point. Not even able to visualize the next time from where I sit. If I survive this, I think I'll become a hermit.
Nicholas had a drink, but he didn't enjoy it. He was too keyed up. Kept glancing nervously at his watch. At last he excused himself, started for his room. Kip sighed, looked after him thoughtfully, wondering vaguely who his girl could be. There were so many new people in town since he'd been away.
I'll take my check now, Tom.
Well, it's all paid, Mrs. Meade. Mr. Dorn took care of it.
Oh? Wait a minute. What did you say his name was?
Mr. Dorn. That writer from Hollywood. I thought you knew him.
Dorn? Nicholas? Oh, well, sister, you certainly did it that time.
Pardon me, Mrs. Meade?
No, nothing, Tom, nothing at all. I just found out what a great little fixer-upper I turned out to be.
What a fool she'd been, Kip thought as she walked through the lobby. Advising Nicholas Dorn not to marry Peggy, when it was the very thing she wished would happen. For then she could be sure that Bill and Peggy would never be able to reestablish the relationship they'd had originally, before she'd managed to split them up. At that same moment, the two young people Kip was so anxious to keep apart were meeting in a spot which had many memories for both of them. At the curve of the river on the edge of town. Bill had arrived first.
I wonder what Peggy wants to tell me. Oh, I should hurry. Her voice was warm and friendly, more like it used to be before.
Hello, Bill.
Peggy.
You're certainly prompt.
Gracias. Good to see you.
Well, I haven't been here for ages.
No, neither have I.
Everything looks the same, though.
Yeah? It's funny. The outside things don't change.
No. I've thought of that, too. Sometimes it's sort of hard to believe. You go through so much, it seems as if the world would look different, too.
Yeah. Remember how we used to sit here in the summertime?
Yeah. It was always so cool. Even it was sizzling in town.
Mm-hmm. We used to talk about all the things we'd do someday. Remember?
Yes, Bill, I remember.
You said you wanted a little white house with bright red shutters.
Yes, and you said you wanted a den with a fireplace in it. And a work shed with a... What was that kind of a saw?
A circular saw. So I could make things for you for the house.
Yeah, that was it.
And you wanted a circular driveway to come up to the front door. Yeah, and a tulip bed in the middle of the yard.
The kitchen was going to be yellow with blue curtains.
Mm-hmm. And an enormous living room, and a row of animals marching all around the nursery walls.
Goodness, weren't we crazy kids? But
We weren't
everything
so
was...
crazy. And it wasn't very long ago.
Bill, the reason I wanted to see you today...
Yeah?
I wanted to tell you that I've done you an injustice, and I'm sorry.
Oh, no, Peggy, you mustn't talk that way. Well, I understood how you felt.
Oh, I've been so mean and inconsiderate.
Well, I had it coming to me.
No, you didn't, Bill. Mary was right all the time. I just didn't want to admit it. I was bitter.
You had a right to be. The way things looked, naturally you thought I was pretty much the heel.
But since Kip came back and everything was explained, I'm very ashamed of the way I treated you that morning you came out to the
Oh,
phone.
don't worry about it, Peggy. It's water under the bridge now. But it does make me awful happy to know that you don't hold it against me anymore. The way you acted, I was sure you hated me. I always would. I admit that made me feel pretty low.
I know, Bill. That's what I wanted to tell you. I don't hate you at all. The hurt, the bitterness, it's all gone now. My feelings have changed completely.
Peggy, I can't believe it.
It's true, Bill. I wanted you to know so that when we both go ahead with our new lives, we won't feel we're building them on unhappiness and misunderstanding.
New lives, Peggy. I don't understand. What new lives do you mean?
Bill Meade looked anxiously into Peggy's face as he asked the question. There'd been a note in her voice, a solemnity which frightened him. Perhaps Bill thought he'd misunderstood her. Perhaps Peggy's answer would not be the one he hoped to hear. Now for our story. Peggy Douglas, Aunt Mary Lane's pretty young niece, had come into town today to keep an appointment with her fiancé, Nicholas Doran, the young writer. But first, she'd telephoned the bank, asked to speak to Bill Meade. In a talk with Aunt Mary that morning, all Peggy's bitterness toward Bill had disappeared. The bitterness she'd felt ever since Bill's wife, Kit, had returned to Wakefield from California with a baby son. Kit's return had explained the reason for Bill's actions recently. Had shown that Bill hadn't been able to act in any other way. He promised Kit to say nothing about the fact that their marriage was not all it might be. Had promised not to see Peggy. And he kept his word, even though he was painfully aware that Peggy couldn't be expected to understand. Today, the two young people had met in a place which had many memories for both of them. On the bank of the river, under a great weeping willow tree. Everything had looked the same to them as it used to, and without realizing it, they had slipped into memories of the past, remembering the dreams they'd had. But then Peggy had attempted to bring the conversation back to reality.
The reason I wanted to see you, Bill.
Yeah?
I wanted to tell you that I've lost all my bitterness towards you, and, well, I'm very ashamed of the way I treated you that morning you came out to the farm.
Oh, don't worry about it, Peggy. It's water under the bridge now. But it makes me awfully happy to know that you don't hold it against me anymore. The way you acted, I was sure you hated me and always would. I admit that made me feel pretty low.
I know, Bill. That's what I wanted to tell you. I don't hate you at all. The hurt, the bitterness, all gone now. My feelings have changed completely.
Peggy, I can't believe it.
It's true, Bill, and I wanted you to know so that when we both go ahead with our new lives, we won't feel we're building them on unhappiness and misunderstanding.
New lives, Peggy. I don't... What new lives do you mean?
Well, Aunt Mary told me something about what you plan to do. And...
You mean about the divorce?
Yes, and that you want to have the baby. Take him and bring him up yourself.
Yeah, I thought it all over, and it seemed the best thing to do. Of course, I can't be sure what Kit and her father will do. They probably won't go for the idea at all. In fact, Kit has definitely refused.
Well, Bill, I don't think it's right for me to discuss your personal life with you, the way things are. But what I meant was that all that would make a great difference in your life.
Yeah, it sure will. To tell you the truth, it sort of scares me.
I can imagine. It won't be easy. I wish there was...
What, Peggy?
Oh, nothing. Anyway, things will work themselves out. No use to worry about it. As Aunt Mary always says, worry never got anybody anywhere.
Yeah. Still, it's kind of hard not to sometimes.
Yeah, I know it is. But you have lots of friends, Bill. That should be some comfort. There are ever so many people who stand by you.
Oh, I suppose so.
And you've got me for a friend.
Just a friend, Peggy?
You mustn't say just, Bill. Friendships are very precious.
Oh, sure they are. I ought to be grateful. But somehow when I remember the way things used to be...
Bill, I don't deny I couldn't. The plans we had, the sort of life we used to talk about, would have been wonderful. But everything's changed now. We couldn't.
We couldn't start over? Are you sure, Peggy?
Yes, I am, Bill. No, well, it couldn't be the same. It would be a makeshift, just a sort of imitation of what we meant. There'd be too many things in between, things we'd each have to forget. I don't think we could.
Maybe you couldn't.
But that doesn't mean that we each can't find some happiness. Perhaps a different kind.
But that's just the trouble. I don't want a different kind. I want the same kind. The same happiness we wanted together.
Oh, Bill, I'm sorry. I can't say how sorry. But it's too late.
Why is it? We're the same people.
No, we're not. We'll never be the same.
Peggy, if you didn't feel that way, if you only knew how sure I am that we could get back to where we were before. Peggy, you're shivering.
No, I'm all right.
Oh, but here, let me put my coat around you. There.
Thanks, Bill.
I know one thing that hasn't changed.
What?
of your neck. It's still just like a baby's. So white. All the little curls.
Oh, Bill, you mustn't talk like that. You're married to Kit.
But I'm not going to be married to her much longer.
Please, Bill.
I'm sorry, Peggy. I know I had no right to. I shouldn't have said what I did. But it's the first time I've been alone with you in so long, and more than anything in the world, I want to hold you in my arms and kiss you. I can't help it.
And I want you to, Bill.
Well, then...
No, Bill.
But don't you see, Peggy, you haven't changed. You just think you have.
I'm sorry, Bill. My mind's made up. Definitely.
Well, then, there's no hope for us at all.
Bill, I'm going to marry Nicholas Dorn in just a few days.
Oh.
Bill, I wish you'd try to understand.
Oh, it's not that I don't understand, Peggy. I do, only too well. I ought to have known better than to hope. I kept trying to tell myself that, but somehow... Well, now if you're in love with Dawn, there's not much for me to say.
But don't you see, Bill, it isn't a question of... I mean, we can't go back. We have to go ahead. And Nicholas is fine now.
Oh, sure, he's all right. He's probably a very swell guy. I've got nothing against Dawn, except that you're in love with him.
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure what love means.
Well, but if you're marrying him, you must know how you feel about him.
Well, I know that we get along all right. We have fun together.
Fun?
Yeah, it's fun. And...
Well, it's none of my business. Just seems an odd way to talk about the guy you're going to marry. Is that the way he looks at it? That marrying you will just be a question of having fun?
Nicholas and I understand each other.
Yeah. Well...
Nicholas is very sensitive, intelligent. He has a sense of humor.
Okay, I get the idea. He's perfect.
Oh, I didn't say that. Nicholas has his faults like everyone else.
Oh, that's something anyway.
Oh, Bill, please, don't feel bitter. It's been so wonderful to talk to you, straighten everything out. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay, Peggy. I don't want to either. The main thing is I want you to be happy. And if marrying Dawn will do that, well, I'm all for it.
Thank you, Bill. And I want you to be happy, too.
Yeah. Well, that's another story. I'm only doing what I know I have to do.
Yes, but you're not alone, you know.
You mean I have Aunt Mary and David Bowman and...
Me?
Well, that's sweet of you, Peggy. I'm glad you want to be friends. But from a man's viewpoint, that won't be too easy.
What do you mean?
Well, do you think Dawn would be pleased with the idea?
Why?
Besides, I'm sure it wouldn't work for me.
You mean you don't want to be friends with me?
Oh, yes, I want to. But the way I feel about you is hardly the nice, brotherly kind of feeling you want me to have. Well, Peggy, thanks for letting me know. And thanks for being so sweet. I'll always remember it. I'd better get going now.
Bill, can't we walk up together?
No, Peggy, dear. No, I'm afraid we're going different ways.
Peggy had an ache in her throat, watching Bill stride away from her. She watched until he disappeared around a bend, but he didn't turn back. He didn't trust himself to. Perhaps Bill would have felt differently had he known something which his wife Kit had learned that same afternoon from the young man she'd met in the bar of the Brown Palace Hotel. For Nicholas Dorn had told Kit he did not intend to marry Peggy. He told her this without suspecting that he was talking to Bill Meade's wife.